Deliberative Session of the Farmington School District to order. Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Again, welcome. There are a few things I'd like to inform the public about before we get started. First of all, there are fire exits located at the back of the auditorium and off to the right. I don't know what the school policy is, but in case we do have to evacuate, I'm designated the parking lot over by the football field as the gathering place to allow for all the emergency vehicles to show up, so we're out of their way and they can do their jobs. Second, cell phones, please mute them. Third, if you haven't already done it, this is a meeting for the voters or registered voters of the Farmington School District. Please sign in at the table and get your card. We are going to be counting cards, not hands. Thirdly, we'll be using moderator's rules for this meeting, and the rules are as follows. The moderator is not following Robert's Rules of Orders. The moderator will use the following general rules for procedure, whose main purpose is to keep the meeting moving and not get bogged down in procedural quagmire. By a majority vote, the voters can overrule the moderator and any rule that the moderator establishes. The moderator will take the articles as they are written. The moderator will consider each article as follows. We'll announce the article number. The moderator need not read the full article. The moderator will recognize any voter in attendance to move the adoption of the article. If the motion is seconded, the moderator will recognize a member of the board of the school board or a petitioner to explain the article. The meeting will then debate on that article. Everyone who speaks must stand at the microphone in front. That person must state their name and their street that they live on in Farmington. No one has the floor unless the moderator recognizes them. The moderator will only allow one motion on the floor at one time. There are two exceptions. A voter may raise a point of order, and if the voter has the floor, that voter may make a motion to amend or call the question. The moderator will not accept motions which will require a no vote to vote in the affirmatives, such as, I move that we not adopt the budget. I will not recognize those motions. Motions to call the question limits debate and needs to be voted on by 2/3 of the voters. However, any voters that are standing in line or any people at the tables that have asked me for permission to speak will get a chance to speak before the motion is moved on. Non-voters may not speak at this meeting except the permission of the voters, except the moderator will allow non-resident school officials, consultants, or experts who are at this meeting to provide information about the articles in which we're speaking on. All speakers must be courteous and must speak to the issues, not to the individuals. The moderator will not allow personal attacks or inappropriate languages. If a person behaves in a disorderly manner, and after notice of the moderator, persistence in such behavior shall cause the moderator to have the police or a registered voter of this town escort that person from the premises. All questions and comments should be directed to the moderator. The moderator will then choose who responds to the questions. With the exception of the initial presentation, I would like to limit every speaker to 3 minutes so we can keep this meeting moving. Each speaker may only speak once. The moderator may vote on all articles. However, the moderator plans to only vote in 2 instances. 1, to break a tie, and 2, to make a tie vote if it is in the interest of, if the motor opposes such a vote. Yes. To one subject. If we are discussing Article 7, I would like one person to speak and then let everybody else speak to the questions. I would like to now have the members of the front table introduce themselves and their position with the school district. And I'll be starting with the Farmington School District.
Matthew Upton, Legal Counsel.
Matthew Upton, Legal Counsel.
Keith Pfeiffer, Interim Superintendent.
Laurie Verville, Business Administrator.
Cynthia Sparks, Director of Curriculum and Instruction.
Kathy King, Farmington School Board Chair.
Penny Moran, Farmington School Board Vice Chair.
Joe Petrie, Farmington School Board.
Stan Frieda, Farmington School Board.
Joel Shagnon, Farmington School Board.
Diana Danito, Director of Student Services.
Kathy?
Kathy Seaver, School District Clerk. Rebecca Dickey, Deputy Town Clerk, Tax Collector.
Ian Titus, Budget Committee Chair.
Neil Johnson, Selectmen's Rep to the Budget Committee.
Jody Connolly, Budget Committee.
Stephen Henry, Budget Committee.
Sylvia Akawat, Vice Chair of the Budget Committee.
Sam Cataldo, Budget Committee.
Okay. And at this time, the moderator recognizes Mary Barron for a presentation.
Switch.
I just wanted to take a quick second and recognize 4 years of dedicated service to the Farmington School Board and the Town of Farmington. Farmington School Board and the Town of Farmington, Kathy King. She'll be retiring after elections in March, and we wish her all the best of luck with that. We thank you for an incredible 4 years through probably some of the most difficult waters this town has ever seen. Thank you, Kath.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, we're going to proceed to the warrant. Warrant for the 2016 Farmington School District meeting in the state of New Hampshire. To the inhabitants of the Farmington School District qualified to vote in school district affairs. First session of the annual meeting, deliberative. You are hereby notified to meet at the Farmington High School Gymnasium in Farmington, New Hampshire on Saturday, the 30th of January 2016 at 9 a.m. This session shall consist of explanations, discussions, and debate of warrant articles 2 through 8. Warrant articles may be amended subject to the following limitations. A, warrant articles whose wording is prescribed by law shall not be amended. B, warrant articles that are amended shall be placed on the official ballot for the final vote of the main motion. C, no warrant article shall be amended to eliminate the subject matter of the article. Second session of the annual meeting, voting. Further, you are hereby notified to meet at the Farmington Town Hall on Tuesday, the 8th day of March, 2016, to vote by official ballot on Articles 1 to 8 as amended. Polls open at 8 a.m. and remain open continually until 7 p.m. to act on the following subjects. Article 1, to choose the following school district officers. 2 school board members for 3-year terms each. 1 moderator for a 1-year term. 1 clerk for a 1-year term. 1 treasurer for a 1-year term. Article 2, shall the district accept and place on file the reports of the auditors, agents, committees, and officers chosen to conduct the prudent affairs of the district? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Who did the motion? Joe? Seconded by Penny.
Kathy.
Kathy.
Kathy, sorry. Discussions. Hearing no further discussions, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of Article 2 as read, please signify by raising your cards. All opposed? Motion carries. Article 3. Shall the Farmington School District raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amount set forth on the budget posted with the warrant or as amended by vote of the first session for the purposes set forth therein, totaling $15,756,816. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall be $17,283,019, which is the same as last year with certain adjustments required by previous actions of the Farmington School District or by law, or the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 40:13, Sections 10 and 16, and take up the issue of a revised operating budget only. Note, this warrant article, this operating budget warrant does not include appropriations contained in any other warrant articles. School Board recommends this article 4-1. Budget Committee recommends this article 5-2. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Penny Moran, seconded by Ann Titus. Discussions. Please state your name and address, street address.
Angie Cardinal, Main Street in Farmington, New Hampshire. Mr. Moderator, if I may, I wanted to take a moment and point out what I believe is a common goal for most of the people here in this room, and that is we want a warrant article, Article number 3, that adopts a school budget which supports our students' learning needs while keeping the tax rate within control. If everyone, or Mr. Moderator, if I may point out this paper here that has both the yellow and the blue section, pointing out the tax impact of said proposed budget and the impact of the default budget should Article 3 fail on March 8th. We're looking at a $5.05 tax impact if that article fails. That is not the desired outcome by anyone in this room. I'm fairly confident to say that. So we need to get to a proposed budget in warrant Article 3 that'll pass on March 8th. There are two major concerns with the current warrant article's school budget, the amount that's showing on there. Number one, administration put together a plan which includes reducing personnel by 5.5 positions related to future student enrollment, but the school board also cut an assistant principal position, which the administration, in discussions and meetings after that vote, have pointed out they do not agree with that decision. They do not feel that it supports the students' learning needs, and they've had many reasons. Many voters who are ready and willing to invest in the Farmington schools also side with the administration on that point. The second major concern, within that school budget, the $15.7 million, we have $324,599 in health insurance savings embedded in the school budget, but it requires a memorandum of understanding to the collective bargaining agreement to happen. But that does not exist yet, as far as I know. So, also, none of the SAU positions' health insurance savings is embedded in that current plan. So if I may ask for, make a request for information, if we could hear from the school board, what is the status on that memorandum of understanding so that the voters are informed?
Yes, we're meeting with the teachers union on February 3rd. I think we've made a lot of progress towards an agreement, but as of now, that agreement is not has not been reached.
Okay. Could we get any sort of level of confidence that the entire $324,559?
If I gave you my assessment, I'd probably be putting words in the mouth of the union.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of reluctant to do that, but I think we all recognize that making a shift in health benefits is far more desirable than people losing their jobs or having program cuts in the school. So I'm optimistic, but beyond that, I would hate to forecast.
Mm-hmm. If none of those savings are realized, what is the number of additional positions that would need to be cut to make up that amount of money?
I can't speak to that. Maybe somebody else can.
I mean, it will, I mean, essentially, it would depend on what some of those positions are that could viably be cut. And we're looking at probably another 8 positions or so. If I could just give you just a point of clarification about the $324,000 savings, that savings is for everyone in the district to be able to going on to the new plan. It involves 164 people in the health census. So it does include savings for the SAU.
That's reflected in the SAU budget, line number 15?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
You sure?
It's the $324,000 encompasses the entire health insurance savings.
But the only reduction on line 15, health insurance for the SAU budget, is the one resulting from the most recent position that was cut. It's not reflected in there.
The $324,000
okay,
is
but
a
then
savings for the entire district, including SAU employees.
Okay, then maybe the number is heavier in the school budget side because that line doesn't look like it to me.
But
That's the blue document, yeah. Line number 15, I believe it is.
One of the changes for the Farmington School District is since we'll be a single district SAU, the SAU budget will now be subsumed into the Farmington School District budget.
All right,
Andy, you're at your time.
with that then, is there a different backup plan other than cutting the roughly 8 positions?
I don't believe so.
Okay, and when will you make that decision?
Up until April 15th, that's kind of our deadline to actually provide the non-renewals to the affected employees. We're hopeful we'll get a decision on February 3rd, but the deadline would be April 15th.
Okay, thank you very much. With that, Mr. Moderator, I'd like to make a motion to amend the proposed warrant article amount from $15,756,816 to $15,919,115.15. That motion is an increase of $162,299.50, which represents half of the health insurance savings that is in negotiations right now.
The number.
162,299.50. We have a motion to increase the line item from $15,756,816 to $15,919,115.15 for an increase of $162,299.50. Do I have a second? Name, please. Lori? Laura. Last name? Got it. Any discussions on the amendment?
Charlie has a discussion.
Charlie King, 10 Rod Road. I know Mrs. Cardinal has good intentions, but unless she's bringing $162,000 of personal money to the table for this debt that she's asking the taxpayer to pay, I think it's irresponsible. The reason I feel it's irresponsible is we have hired the school board, the budget committee, to work on the financial interests of this town, They put forth a budget which has some cost savings on it based upon healthcare without cutting salaries, and cutting people. And I think they're doing their best in the eyes of their employees and the community. And just throwing money at people because they feel that they can't make any health insurance concessions isn't realistic in this economy. It's not realistic with the way healthcare is today, and it's not fair to the taxpayers in this community. Thank you.
Mr. Johnson.
Mr. Chairman, this $162,000 proposed amendment amounts to approximately 37-cent increase in the taxes. This would be on top of the $1.59 that the budget that was approved already includes. So adding this into the budget would bring it to a $1.97 increase for this year alone, and this does not include any of the other warrant articles. This would mean that the tax rate would go from what is currently $25 to approximately $27 per thousand this coming tax year. That's going to bring, for the last 13 years, the tax increase for the schools is 115% over the last 13 years. It's gone nowhere but up from the beginning, and people can't afford to pay this kind of money any longer. That's it.
Yeah, I'm KJ Cardinal, Main Street. I don't think anybody really wants taxes to go up. I think that we would all agree in a dream scenario, but I think speaking to Mr. King's point is that I don't think that that's irresponsible to raise this number. I think that it's been irresponsible from the board and from the superintendent Welford to put forward a budget that is assuming $324,000 in savings, when this is something that needs to be negotiated in a non-contract year for the teachers. I think that that's been very, very just irresponsible right there, because they're putting forward a budget to us voters that we look at now, and now we have no choice. It's a rock and a hard place. Do we want to raise taxes? No. Do we want to cut teachers? No. But there's no other plan. There's no additional plan that the school board just said that they had to offset this in any way. So that is why, I think that a lot of people in this town that have kids in this town really feel that, we can't just cut 8 teachers on top of all the cuts that have already been made. And it's also a transitional period with Middleton leaving, and there's a lot of uncertainty and unknowns there. And, I really think that if this budget process had been started significantly earlier by the school board, by the superintendent, and we could have actually got ahead of this. But now we don't have time. We need to make this decision today to put a warrant article forward without knowing the decision of something that's not going to happen until February 3rd. So I think it's unfair to call any sort of voters' thoughts on this irresponsible, when I think that the people that we've elected in this town have been equally or more so irresponsible by putting us in this position.
I do not think that the school board was irresponsible when we are looking at citizens that work or maybe don't, and go to work and have to have their insurance changed because they work in a corporation, and they take what they get and they don't get to negotiate. And I'm really sorry. However, going into this, I had no idea that this was going to be a huge issue with the collective bargaining unit. I really thought, you know what? Middleton left. There's things that we all need to do and pull together in the short term, and then in the long term, we can look at those things. To add more money to the tax rate, to me, it is irresponsible. Let's get the negotiations out of the way and critically look then at what other cuts we may need to make. I sat at a budget committee meeting and I heard an employee stand up and say, there are at least 10 teachers that she said could be cut. So what we need to do then is find out where these positions are, have a good conversation with the staff in place, and let them do it. If they don't want to switch their insurance, then maybe they should think out of the box. Thank you.
Carol O'Connell. I live on Spring Street. I also am a union member, so I guess I will be addressing this as a union member. As a union member, I was given information about the proposed change to my insurance on November 10th. So that means that was about 2 months ago that we were given the information of what it would look like. And I know all of us, the insurance is a huge issue, so it would not be something that we would take lightly. And at that time, we asked questions and we were waiting for information to get back. The union has never voted on it because we were still waiting for information that would guarantee how much the district was going to put into. I don't know how much I can go into details, but I just wanted it to be represented that as of November 10th, we were just still getting information about the insurance and what it looked like. And so making a large decision like that for us as members was something that we were taking very seriously, and we were looking for information. So I don't think it's an issue of whether we want to help the district and the community. I think it was an issue of making sure we had the information we needed and we could make an educated decision.
Thank you. Mr. Henry.
Hi, Moderator. I'd just like to correct some of the points from KJ. The SAU administration presented simultaneous budgets, one that anticipated cooperation from the teachers, one that did not. The school board chose the budget that reflected the cooperation from the teachers and then chose to cut it further. The SAU throughout the entire process presented simultaneous budgets and explained the conditions with each budget.
Mike. We also start this process in like August, September, October. We've been talking for months about this budget, and there's been meetings and conversations. So this is not a budget that we just have thrown together. We've worked on this budget, and we've put this through for the best of the town and everyone in good faith.
Hi, I'm Chrissy Pelletier. I live on Cherub Drive.
Christy?
Chrissy Pelletier.
Christy Pelletier, thank you.
I kind of started going line item through this budget, and without the savings that we would get for the $300,000, I just can't even see where we could. I can't see 10 teachers being cut. I can't see where we could cut another $300,000 if this negotiation doesn't go through. I mean, this is like gonna impact our kids. I know that the tax rate's going up, and I know we have a safety building that we want and other things, but I think it's worth it. So,
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Angie Cardinal, Main Street. In regards to other industries accepting health insurance savings changes, they do not have a collective bargaining agreement that states that a comparable plan must be presented, and that, you know, right now our reality is we need a memorandum of understanding. We can't just say, here's a health insurance savings change, health insurance plan change, my apologies, that presents some savings for the district. Here you go, you're going to take it. We can't do that. We need that memorandum of understanding. However, here's the other reality. Let's say we move forward and that change happens and the district gets to realize the $324,000 of savings. That would be fantastic news. Then you end up with a surplus in your budget, right? If we realize those savings,
the savings has already been built into the budget, so you're not going to have a
Thank you. If the amendment that I proposed passes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, sorry, I appreciate that. If this amendment passes, we go ahead and do realize the entire health insurance savings as planned, then we end up with a surplus. Then the school district, the school board, has the ability to return those funds to the town, thus saving the taxes for future year or future years, right? So my question is, what would you prefer? To take half of the money, go ahead and cover it with taxes, assuming that you would, if we don't realize any of those savings, that about half of that number of teachers would have to be cut in addition, right? So 4 or 5 additional personnel cuts, or go ahead and cut the entire number of 8 to 10 personnel and not be able to get that back. That, I guess, is where I challenged myself on what would I rather have. And I look forward to the promise of this negotiation being successful and getting the $324,000 of savings. But when you start on November 20th with that negotiation and present to the Budget Committee on December 5th, I don't think that that was the right timing for what happened. And I've told this board that before.
Thank you. Moderator's discretion, yes.
Laura Vittorioso, Governor's Road. I would like to get back to the amendment that has been proposed. I understand that no one wants their taxes to increase, but it is really important to understand that if this budget, if Article 3 is defeated and you go to the default budget, you have a tax increase of $5.32, which is an astronomical number. If you add in the extra money that Mrs. Cardinal proposed, it would be $1.97. It's a good compromise between the numbers. We have $324,000 that we don't know about. That's half of it, and it'll only bring the tax rate to $1.97. It's very important that I think people realize that yes, your taxes are going to go up, but if you get to the default, it's going to go very, very high. So I would recommend adding Mrs. Cardinal's amendment.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson.
The default budget of $5.05, if we don't add the 162, then it's a comparison of a $1.59 increase as opposed to $5.05. So I mean, what we're talking about is a $1.59 increase or a $2 increase at this point. Comparing to the default budget assumes that people are going to reject the proposed budget no matter what it is. So I don't think that's probably valid or matters at this point. However, we're talking about a $2 increase, and people are saying it's for the schools, for the students, for whoever. That's fine, but a large portion of our community are fixed income, low income, Social Security, retirement, who have not had any increases over the past few years. Yet the school budget, and in some cases the town, county, and the state budgets have all had increases. It's these people that are paying the majority of our taxes that can't afford it. They are putting no burden on the schools, the retired, the Social Security. They just pay their $2,000 or $3,000 of school tax and don't affect the budget. They don't have students attending the school. They don't use any school resources. That's pure profit. These are the people that are being chased away. You talk about increasing the budget. It's great if you have children in the school. It's not so great if you're retired. You're losing this $20, $30 a month to taxes that could be used for food, for heat, whatever you want. But it's these people that have to be considered, and a $2 tax increase is just too much.
Tim Brown from Melody Lane in Farmington. Over the last 2 years, we've lost approximately $3 million in revenue. Nobody is saying that the teachers have to take these concessions that'll save us $325,000, but from a voter perspective, we need to save that $325,000. Where we find that in the savings is up to the SAU. If the teachers say, we want to keep our insurance, they can do that under their current contract. However, that money still needs to be cut further because there's a significant amount of people in this town that are being outpriced of their home by a tax increase, which at some point is going to increase what they paid on a mortgage of their home.
Mary Hunting, Skyview Drive. I'm concerned as a voter that I'm coming to this meeting and given numbers to vote on when in 4 days from now, a decision is going to be made. Why couldn't this decision have been made before today? This date wasn't a surprise. We knew this meeting was coming. Why did we not have the collective bargaining agreement made before this date when I have to make a decision right here and now?
I can answer that question. We reached out to the union in the beginning of November. We provided all the information they requested. We asked that we meet in early December to try to resolve it. We were told by the union that they could not meet until after the Christmas holiday. We didn't get the chance to meet until I think January 11th. At that meeting, they came in without their representative, made one proposal, and that was the end of it. I don't want to get into where the parties are because I think that's protected information, but I can assure you that the SAU and the school board has been trying to get this wrapped up for a long time now.
Okay, just a final comment. It sounds like there were questions that went unanswered even before then.
We have, all the information we've provided is the same information that we provided in early December. Nothing has changed, other than assurances that the SAU was going to have a similar cuts. But we've been saying that since day one.
Okay, thank you.
Kathy?
I just have a math comment in my brain here. When we're saying 8 to 10 positions, that would be assuming we were paying these people like $20,000 because you have to include their benefits in that too. Because that would, if you take away, I know that's what I heard, but I'm not mathematically adding that up. I'm thinking it's less because if you take a salary, say, of a teacher that's getting paid $32,000, that $32,000 is going to go, but so isn't all the benefits that go with that $32,000. So to say, you know, 324 is going to be 10 teachers based on that, it doesn't make as much sense to me as saying maybe 6. Not that I'm saying 6 is a good decrease in teachers. I'm just saying,
I can answer that.
It sounds to me almost like it would be less than that because not all our teachers, number one, get paid at the low end. Plus, the benefits, the unemployment, the workers' comp, the retirement program, the insurance, all has to be taken into consideration. So when you drop a $32,000 salary, you're probably dropping a $45,000 drop. Does that make sense? Yeah, Angie's shaking her head, so I guess it makes sense. So I just think it's less than that. Not that I think that, I'm not saying I think losing 6 teachers is any better than losing 8. I'm just saying I don't think it would be 8 to 10, just based on the fact that not everybody's the lowest paid that would go and there's benefits.
Mr. Henry?
They have to factor in unemployment in that calculation, in the number of positions that need to be reduced to hit a certain dollar figure. So that short-term number is higher than what the long-term number would be once the unemployment expired. So it might be 3 or 4 teachers in the future, but to absorb the potential unemployment cost, it's a higher number of teachers to reach that number in the short term.
Mr. King?
I have 2 questions. Is the current health care plan that is offered by the school, family plan, what is its cost to the community per family plan?
1 moment, we'll get that number.
So the proposed rates would be for a family plan, the total annual premium for a family plan next year would be $28,398.
That is the current plan?
That is that's for as if it were,
Approved.
remaining status quo, no change in the teachers' negotiations. That family plan would be $28,398. That's the total amount, of which the employee would pay 70% of $19,000. The remainder would be picked up by the district. Going forward, are you also looking at what the proposed piece, bear with me here if you would. No. With the proposed yellow open access choice fund for a family plan going forward next year would be $24,852. And again, we would be looking at that 70% split, for an example. So the employee would be paying $17,396, and the district would be paying the other $7,000.
The district pays the 70.
I need more coffee.
The district pays the 70.
70%.
The district pays the 70%.
70%.
An employee is paying 30%. And at $28,000 annual premium, is that classified as a Cadillac plan under Affordable Health Care Act?
Yes, most definitely.
So if that qualifies as a Cadillac plan under the Affordable Health Care Act, isn't the employer potentially liable for a 40% surcharge in 2018?
18, yes. As of Cadillac tax has been postponed to January 1st, 2018. I'm not certain of the entire structure of Cadillac.
Actually, the Cadillac tax has been pushed out to 2020. And right now, the Cadillac tax is at $28,500 for a family plan. So currently, we would be just underneath the Cadillac tax. But under the Cadillac tax originally was not going to go into effect until January 1 of 18. So there's no question with even a modest increase in your premiums, it would be Cadillac's tax eligible as of 18, but it's all been kicked out to 2020 now.
So is it fair to say that this is a very high-end health care package for an employee to have?
It's a very good health plan.
Motion to call the question. Second. Angie? Angie, you call the question, right?
Second, Jody.
Second by Jody Conley. Okay, this vote's going to be on the motion to call the question. All in favor of calling the question, please show cards. All opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Moderator, I have a petition to take...
Going right here. Okay. Now, we're going to vote on the motion of the amendment, which is to increase the bottom line budget from $15,756,816 to $15,919,115.15 for an increase of $162,299.50. I have a request here for a secret ballot on the amendment. Neil Johnson, you here? Ann Titus. Mary Barron. Sylvia Arquette. Steve Henry. Elizabeth Johnson. Jody Conley. Okay, the secret ballot entails that you go in, sign in under A through L, M through Z. You will be given 2 slips, one that says yes, one that says no. Put the slip for your vote in the ballot box, throw the other slip away. Once everybody's had time to vote, we'll continue on with the meeting on further discussions until the ballot clerks count up the votes, and then when they get the vote tally, I'll announce the amendment, the outcome of the vote. We are voting on the amendment only to increase the bottom line budget by $162,299.50.
Yeah.
162, we didn't have one.
Nice job. Good job. Good job.
Just think we get to it, and we don't get it. Percentage points. It's on the bottom line.
I don't, aside from,
I think the board
I had my card up, moderator didn't recognize my card.
Are we okay with what I said?
Yeah.
I think that's the option of doing this now. Usually he doesn't.
It's my card.
I know.
No, I'm not concerned with that.
I heard a second.
As long as I have a carbonation, I'm good. It doesn't have to be that. I like carbonation. That's why I drink my But that's nasty.
I like that, and I like the heat.
Just because it gives me something to take
I don't. I think actually yeah, now I'll be better for the next couple. After I just had breakfast and drink because I just worked down to.
The amount that they try to buy a book, what the salary they get, I believe it's less expensive to pay health insurance rather if it's a wage dollar, you gotta add a bunch on it. If it's health insurance dollar, you don't add it. Is your daughter?
Well, when you said that, I thought, well, maybe we should tell everybody how to tell them.
You'll visit Farm.
Yeah, but I'm not going to go stay on line.
They talk about Phil Bowman.
I'm going to leave. Yeah, I went there already. That coffee was almost gone.
I had my granddaughter last year.
But I knew that was coming.
Sat in my seat, took a picture, and put it in Facebook. My granddaughter. She was so cute. You'll see.
Because they've never changed.
Sam was amazing. Remember the house we went to the auction?
Thank you.
Yeah, it's still, they built something like this.
Well, you know, I don't.
I didn't go through the house. 16. We went to the auction, state auction. I just got to win the lottery so I get that down to the driveway of my house. Yeah, I see the park with kids, but my wife does.
Yes, I do.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you please take your seats so we can continue on the meeting. If anybody hasn't voted, please do so now. Seeing no one else wants to cast a vote, I'm going to have the ballot clerks count the vote. While we're waiting for them to count, I'm going to jump ahead and move to Article 8. Let me rephrase that. We'll have further discussion on Article 3. Any further discussion on Article 3 at the moment?
Can somebody give me an average number of the surplus monies that's been turned from the school budget to the town over the last 3 years, back into the town?
Who would have that information?
I could certainly just provide you a ballpark figure. I mean, last year it was roughly $400,000. The previous year was about $900,000, and I think the year before, because of a lot of audit adjustments, was also another $900,000.
The $400,000 from last year, does that include the court-ordered payment from Middleton back into
That
the SAU?
takes into consideration that, yes. So $400,000 went back to offset taxes.
During this budget process, was any of that $400,000 in surplus money taken into consideration for cuts?
Absolutely, absolutely. When we began developing the budget, we look at zero-based budgeting. We start at the very bottom, and working with administration, they've got to justify all of their requests.
So next year, there's no surplus tax dollars. It's going to be returned to the taxpayer in this budget, is what you're saying?
On this, on the 16-17 budget? Is that what you're...
On the budget that we're voting on now, Article 3, you're telling me that Article 3 contains no surplus revenue that's going to be returned to the taxpayers next year?
No, I mean, this is bare bones. This is a bare bones budget. I can't forecast out a year and a half. The idea is that you come in with a balanced budget at the end of the year.
Mr. Petrie?
Yes, I just want to make a correction. That was not court-ordered. That was an agreement, a side agreement before it got to court.
That's fine. So I guess I'm at a loss. When you guys took your last fiscal year budget, you immediately took $400,000 off of that budget because of the surplus funding that was returned to the taxpayers, or no?
Excuse me, it's returned to the taxpayers. I mean...
It's returned at the end of the fiscal year to reduce the next year's taxpayers' money. So was that $400,000 cut out of the beginning
What
budget?
Lori was starting to say is that the budget is based on they start at the bottom and start building their budget. So no, they did not take last year's budget and just trim $400,000 off the top of it and say this is what we have to work with. They started at zero and built their budget up. Now, that being said, they do not know, it's their best guess of what anticipated revenues are.
Okay.
Somebody could bequeath $1 million to the school, and that would be unanticipated revenues, which would affect the tax dollars.
So my last question is, has any of the methods of projecting revenue in this budget changed for next year's fiscal year?
The methods for projecting, I mean, we're taking into consideration that we do not have tuition revenues from Middleton School District. And ultimately, what will happen is September 1st is a statutory guideline to disclose after books have been closed, you know, what's left over from the 15-16 budget, and to revise the revenues, provide the revenues to the Department of Revenue September 1st. These revenues that are on this sheet here at the very top are our very best estimate. And they are estimated revenues based upon supporting documents for adequacy, statewide property tax.
Okay, with that, Mr. Moderator, I'd like to make a motion that we amend Article 3.
Hold on to that motion, please. I have the results of the motion to add $162,299.50 to the bottom line budget. Yes, 29. No, 31. Motion fails.
I'll repeat my motion for the record. I'd like to amend Article 3 to read the total appropriation to be $15,256,816. Basically, I'm asking to reduce Article 3 by $500,000.
We have a motion on the floor to reduce the bottom line budget of $15,756,816 by $500,000. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. King. Discussions.
Mike, part of the money that had been returned to the town was that we were estimating catastrophic special ed costs, and we were building that into the budget. And so for that reason, this year we were very, we cut it really close, so that's part of that. I just wanted to tell you that. We did take that into account. But we did cut the amount of money that we were setting aside for catastrophic special ed services.
Mr. Petrie.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Moderator. Also, we have $138,000 less stabilization money from adequacy. The Senate actually voted to cut it by 4% per year in the following years, and we get $2.9 million in just stabilization money.
Any further discussion?
I seconded Charlie King, 10 Rod Road. I seconded Mr. Brown's motion for the discussion, and his point is a valid one. Over the 3 years that he asked questions on, the school raised through taxation $900,000 too much, $900,000 too much, and $400,000 too much, which would have been $700,000 too much if it wasn't for an agreement, out of court settlement. The fact is that is on the average $2 per thousand more than they needed. His point, and I agree with him, is that begs the question of you propose this as a bare bone budget, but when it's $2 per thousand more than it needs to be in the last 3-year average, as a resident we have to ask ourselves, really? Because reality says something different. Part of the reason that you have to give back that amount of money is the state law had changed and only allow you to carry over $100,000 of money year to year. Before that amount, the school was carrying excess money when it felt it might need. That's now been rendered not legal, so they can only have to turn back all within $100,000, and this is what we've seen. We've seen continually, I think, not bare bones budgeting, but budgeting for things that they think might happen and asking the taxpayers for more than they really need. Thank you.
Mr. Henry.
How much of the surpluses in the past 3 years have been because of revenue that we didn't anticipate, and how much of that revenue was from tuition sources that don't exist anymore?
I can really only speak to ballpark figures. I didn't bring prior year information, but yes, in previous years, there were some additional revenues in a vicinity of about $80,000 or $90,000 just from the Health Trust premium holidays that were paid to us, which that premium holiday is going away. We cannot count on that any longer. Additional monies, for example, catastrophic aid, We did see another $30,000. Trying to, and right, exactly. We're not expecting much more in catastrophic aid. That's been, looks like it will be phased out. So revenue-wise, yes, there's been about another, about $200,000 of that savings that I'm speaking about, the $700,000. But again, as Mrs. King alluded to, there's some things in the budget that we felt in this current budget, for example, paring down the utility costs, paring down the fuel costs to what is actually consumed. Special education placements, we've really honed in on those placements and what we have for placements and not just adding into the budget for the sake of adding in.
Laura Vittorioso, 86 Governors Road. I would urge everyone to vote against that amendment that was just made. In the last 2 years, this school has worked very hard. They have had to cut $3.1 million from their budget from between last year and this year. Like every member of the school board has said, this is a bare minimum budget. They have cut as much as they feel that they need. I understand that yes, it's difficult to have your tax rates high, but I'd rather get money back at the end of the year than not have enough for the kids and the people of this town. Thank you.
Mr. Petrie.
Yes, thank you. Question on it. I believe we get, we have a 2.5%, we're part of that 2.5% fund to hold back.
Yes.
And how much is in that fund? And could you explain what we need to do if we need to access those funds?
There's the 2.5% designated unassigned fund balance was approved by the voters, I think, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Essentially, that is for definite emergencies, and we have to make the case to not only Department of Revenue, but to the Commissioner of Education that it is for emergency purposes only. Those emergencies are pretty much defined as an unanticipated special education out-of-district placement. I mean, we would have to have, something serious happening with our buildings. Those are kinds of unforeseen emergencies. And you have to really make your case to be approved. So it's quite a process to even get that money.
Thank you.
And another part of that question was how much is in that fund?
I think I said about 160,000. It's figured every year at 2.5% of your district assessment is what you're allowed to retain.
Thank you.
It's primarily only used for emergency purposes?
Yes.
Mrs. Barron.
Mary Barron, Ridge Road, Farmington. While I totally understand where Tim Brown and Charlie King are coming from, my concern is in March. If enough people feel that the removal of $500,000 from this operating budget is unacceptable to them, that they have a fear that there'll be 80 kids in a classroom and only 4 teachers in a building, if those fears carry with them to the ballot booth and they're afraid of that, I'm going to make an educated guess that they would vote that budget down because they feel it is not enough money. Then what's going to happen? Your default budget will kick in, and we're looking at between $5 and $6 per tax rate. So I'm at a do I or don't I. I totally understand that, but I have an internal fear that if this amendment passes, the amended budget will fail in a ballot booth and we'll be stuck with default. Just to throw that out there.
Mr. Frito.
And I totally understand that the concern for taxes, but we can't be making decisions for our town based on what we want our tax bill to be. It just doesn't work that way. We've seen, Mr. Johnson pointed out that for 13 years our taxes have gone up. but the services and the quality of life in our town has gone down. Austerity, by economic research, shows that economic research shows that austerity measures do not work. They cause a downward spiral in the town, which is where we are. We have to make a decision to invest some money. If we keep cutting the school, our schools will be bad. People will not want to move here. They will not want our children in the school district. The only way to lower our taxes is to invest in our schools, invest in our town, spend a little money now and attract more families with more tax dollars, more businesses who want to live and grow where there are good schools and good services. So we need to make some decisions, and they're tough ones, but we can't just keep cutting for the sake of cutting. It isn't fair to our future. Thank you.
Mr. Johnson.
I know Stan's going to find this a little surprising, but I kind of agree with him. You can't make the cuts without... to a point. I think it's a mistake to say that town services are cut because we're not talking about the town budget. This is the school budget. Services of the town at this point aren't even being considered. That being said, attracting new people is great, but it's at the expense of losing our lower income people. Because to move these new people in, you're going to raise taxes, make the schools more attractive. At the same time, you're raising taxes, and those on fixed income can't afford to stay. So you're going to make the decision. We try to get a balancing act. As for this proposal of $500,000, I'd like to ask in a moment if this could be trimmed to $250,000. My question is we have trust funds. We have a trust fund for special education trust fund. I believe there's over $100,000 in that. We also have a couple trust funds for buildings and grounds, which would cover any emergencies that may come up as far as those type facilities. So we've got probably close to $300,000 to $500,000 in available funds for emergency use. That being said, I think the $500,000 cut is a little excessive because we don't know what the actual impact of Middleton's leaving is going to have. And I'd like to have a little bit experience under our belt to see exactly what is going to be left over at the end of the year. I'd like to ask if Mr. Brown and Mr. King would consider modifying their proposal and putting a request in for a $250,000 cut as opposed to $500,000.
Mr. Brown?
Is there a petition for a secret ballot on this? No?
Currently, no.
Okay. What I would say is taxpayers are in the room, let them decide at the $500,000, and if that doesn't work, then modify to the $250,000. Because what's concerning me is I'm hearing that we lost $3 million in revenue from Middleton and we made those cuts. 1.5 million of that is going to be realized or felt next year. Yet our school increase budget is over that $1.5 million in increases. So where are we cutting? That's not true.
Mr. Henry?
This budget is down from last year's budget. It's not $1.5 million higher.
Any other discussions on the amendment to reduce the budget by $500,000?
Call the question.
Got a motion to call the question?
Second.
Second by Mr. Johnson. This vote is going to be on the motion to call the question. All in favor, please raise your cards. All opposed? Motion to call the question carries. Now we'll be voting on the amendment to lower. We, the unassigned voters of Farmington, hereby request the vote be taken by secret ballot.
No.
Okay, back to another drill. You're going to have to sign in at the table. You'll get a yes and no card.
Mr. Moderator?
Yes.
If my name's on that petition, I wish to remove it.
Still got 5.
Okay.
was not. Okay, so we're going to vote by secret ballot on the motion to lower the proposed budget by $500,000. Please line up at your correct location. Get a yes and no
I don't see a
ballot.
list of the trust funds.
Put the one you want to vote into the ballot box. Throw the other one away.
The town had.
Dollar amendment.
Vote on the $500,000 amendment to lower the budget by $500,000.
That'll teach me.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, if you please take your seats. If you haven't cast your vote already, please do so. Testing. All set? Okay. Ballot clerks are counting the ballot. Any further discussion on Article 3? Mr. Henry.
I'd like to move to table Article 3 until we have the results of the ballot.
A motion to table Article 3. There's no debate noted. Majority vote. All in favor of tabling Article 3 until the voters count. Show of cards. All opposed. We had a motion to table Article 3 until the ballot count has been done so we can continue on with other business. It is a non-debatable motion, but it has to be voted on by majority vote. All in favor to table Article 3 until the count. All opposed. Motion carries. Article 4. Shall the Farmington School District approve the cost items included in the collective bargaining agreement reached between the Farmington School District and the Farmington Education Support Paraprofessional United, which calls for the following increases in salaries and benefits at the current staffing levels. Year estimated costs. This budget, 2016-2017, that we're voting on today, $94,753. The following year, 2017-2018, of $20,501. The school board recommended this article 4-1. The budget committee recommended this article 4-2 with one abstention. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Penny? Moved by Penny, seconded by Kathy. Discussion. Mr. Henry.
What are the requirements to be a paraprofessional, and what's the current starting wage?
Our school is a Title I school, is required to have paraeducators certified as a Para 2 certification, which means typically there's 2 years of post-secondary education or comparable credits thereof. The starting salary, I don't believe I have that in front of me. It's an hourly wage.
Would be $10.95.
$10.95 per hour in the 16-17 school year.
I'm looking for the current wage.
Current year is $10.45.
$10.45 for the current year. Any other discussions? Seeing no further discussion, call for a vote. All in favor of Article 4 as read, please show your cards. All opposed? Motion carries. Article 4 as written. And here comes the vote. Thank you. A vote on the Article 3 amendment to lower the operating budget by $500,000. Yes, 13. No, 43. Motion is defeated. I have a motion to bring number 3 back to the table. Moved by Henry. Mr. Henry, seconded by Mr. Johnson. Article 3. Any further discussion on Article 3? Have moved to call the question. Mr. King. We're going to vote on calling the question. All in favor of calling Article 3, please show your cards. All opposed? Motion carries. We are going to vote on Article 3. Shall the Farmington School District raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles or other appropriations voted separately, the amount set forth on the budget posted with the warrant or as amended by a vote of this first session for the purpose set forth within, totaling $15,756,816. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall be $17,283,019, which is the sum of last year with certain adjustments required by previous action of the Farmington School District or by law, or the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 40:13, Section 10 and 16, to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only. Note, this operating budget does not include appropriations contained in any other warrant articles. All in favor of Article 3 as read, please show your cards. All opposed? Article 3 carries. Article 5. Shall the Farmington School District, if Article 4 is defeated, authorize the governing body to call one special meeting at its option to address Article 4 cost items only? School Board recommends this 5-0. Do I have a motion? Motion by Steve Henry, second by Ann Titus. Discussion. Mr. Petrie.
Yes, you should vote in favor of this motion because you have to, if you don't vote for it, you have to go to Superior Court to petition, and that costs you money because lawyers cost and whatever. So please vote for this motion.
Any other discussion on Article 5? Seeing no other further discussion, we'll vote on Article 5. All in favor of Article 5 as read, please show your cards. All opposed? Article 5 carries. Article 6. Shall the voters of the Farmington School District vote to authorize the school board to enter into a 4-year lease agreement for $80,320 for the purpose of leasing one school bus for pupil transportation, and to raise and appropriate the sum of $20,080 for the first year's payment for that purpose. This lease contains an escape clause. The school board recommends this article 5-0. The Budget Committee recommends this article 7-0. Do I have a motion? Motion by Mr. Petrie, second. Ms. Titus. Discussion. Seeing there's no discussion, see about voting on Article 6 as read. All in favor, please show your cards. All opposed? Article 6 passes. Article 7. Shall the Farmington School District vote to raise and appropriate up to $50,000 to be placed in the Buildings and Grounds Capital Reserve Fund established in 1993. This sum is to come from the June 30th, 2016 unassigned fund balance available for transfer on July 1. No amount raised from taxation. The school board does not recommend this article by a vote of 2-3. The Budget Committee recommends this article 6-0. All in prior to this meeting, the Budget Committee had a meeting. And when it was 06 at the public hearing that the Budget Committee had, the fund was not established or what fund they wanted their money to go in. So at their public meeting, they voted 07. They had a meeting prior to this meeting today and voted 6-0 to approve this article. The school board does not recommend by a vote of 2 to 3. That's not what it says. That is correct. Mr. Henry. Now, hold on a second. Do we have a motion to move the question to, do we have a motion to discuss Article 7? So moved by Penny Moran, seconded by Stan Frieder. Discussion. Mr. Henry.
I move to change that wording to say the school board does not recommend the article.
We have a motion to add the words "does not recommend" to the school board line of where it says "school board recommends" to "does not." Second by Jody Conley. Discussions. Hearing no discussions, I'll call a vote on the amendment to add the words "does not" to the school board recommends in between board and recommends. All in favor, please show your cards. All opposed? Motion carries. Discussion on Article 7. Mr. Henry.
And speak for the board. When we were presented this article originally, the fund was for the athletic grounds capital reserve fund. The budget committee wanted to see the building and grounds fund, which provided for athletics as well as buildings and gave more flexibility to the fund, which is why we originally decided not to support it. When the fund was changed, it gave more flexibility. The board decided that we did support funding that capital reserve if there's money left in the budget at the end of the year.
Any further discussion? Mrs. Barron.
Could we ask why, representative of the school board to explain why they do not recommend this? Is it simply the capital reserve fund itself that you wanted to go into, or is there other plans for the funds?
Mrs. King.
I think it was because with all the difficulty in budgeting, we just did not want to keep any more money at this year. We just wanted to give it back and see where we are in another year. That was pretty much the consensus, was that we didn't want to keep, we're going to take money and we're going to keep it, but we wanted to give it back. We just didn't think this was the time, this year was a year to do that.
Follow up, Mrs. Barron.
So just for clarification, if there is any left over, it has two places it can go, into this capital reserve fund or return it to the town to offset taxes. It's the school board's opinion that that's where it should go, back to the taxpayers, and the budget committee is feeling that it should go into a capital reserve fund. Am I right? Okay, thank you.
Mr. Henry.
Not highlighting any specific government entity. In government budgeting throughout the country, there's often an idea that if the money's there, we need to spend it. I consider using these capital reserve funds as a way for the school to retain the money without feeling the need to spend it or lose it. It's money that at some point the taxpayers would spend anyway, so I like having that savings account hanging out there as a reason to not spend the money just because it's there. In recent years, we've seen quite a bit return. I think they've been prudent with the end of the year money. As a matter of practice, I tend to support these as long as the capital reserve fund that it's going into is a worthy fund.
Carol.
Carol O'Connell, Spring Street. As a resident, and I'm hearing about emergency funds that might come up. So I'm thinking about our superintendent who is on, is it a paid leave of absence? Is that correct?
We're not talking about the
No, I'm talking about emergency funds, so I'm wondering about where the funding is to support someone who is on paid leave and also having an interim. Where does that, if that would be like an emergency fund, so how does that, I'm just thinking, Where would that be placed on a budget? And is that something that's coming out of this current budget or something that we?
Point of order on that. I mean,
Yeah,
has nothing to do with this article.
That has nothing.
Or this budget. Or this budget.
The
Emergency fund, so that's an unexpected,
Right now, we're
But
currently
what-
operating under an SAU budget that is not, that this year, that has nothing to do with this article or this budget currently.
so it's coming out of funding from the current
the
budget?
current budget that's already,
Okay, well, that
we are
answers
in.
the question. That's fine, thank you.
Mr. King.
Charlie King, 10 Rod Road. How much did we recently spend to redo the high school fields this past year in this current past budget?
What came out of that?
Came out,
Total, the project was $159,000. 150 of it came out of capital reserve funds. Another 9,000 came out of the general operating budget and facilities.
so this is the fund that money came out of?
No, it came out of the it did not. It did not. This particular Buildings and Grounds capital reserve has a balance of approximately $25,000. The 150 for the fields, actually, this is such a small font, came out of athletic fields,
So the 150,000.
outdoor athletic
And what
facilities.
is the current remaining balance in that fund?
That would be 16,000, approximately 16,000.
So there's approximately $16,000 left in the athletic fields.
Outdoor athletic
Outdoor
facilities.
athletic facilities fund.
So this fund is dedicated for a different purpose than maintaining those
This
fields?
fund is for buildings and grounds. It's more if they needed a new window and they needed money for a window, they could take it out of this capital reserve fund, being that it's also buildings
And what is the
and/or
current- What is
grounds.
the current balance of this fund?
Approximately $25,000.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion on Article 7? Seeing no further discussion, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of Article 7 as read, please show your cards. All opposed? Motion carries. Article 8, to see if the town will vote to require that the annual budget and all special warrant articles having a tax impact, as determined by the governing body, shall contain a notation stating the estimated tax impact of the article. The school board recommends this Article 5-0. The Budget Committee recommends this Article 7-0. Motion by Kathy, seconded by Ann. Discussion. Call the question. All in favor of calling the question? All opposed? No. Oh, yes, we do have to have a second. We do have to have a second to call the question, sorry. Second by Mary. I apologize. Okay, we'll re-vote on that one. We've got a motion and a second to call the question. All in favor? All opposed? Thank you. Discussion on Article 8. Seeing no discussion. All in favor of Article 8 as read? Please raise your cards. All opposed? Motion carries. Article 9, to transact any other business that may legally come before this meeting. Mary.
Is this where I can just make a little speech? A little one? It's not really business, but it's a comment, set of comments that I want everybody to leave here with today, if you will, if you'll allow me the courtesy. I've been thinking a lot about this, obviously, for the last, I don't know, 2 years, maybe 2.5 years when Middleton left. Farmington is in uncharted waters. We have not, when was the last time anyone in this building or room or heard their grandparents talk about having to deal with an entire district departing, not only the buildings, but departing classrooms, departing financially? We don't know. We're not through this process enough yet. We've still got another year to go to know how it's all going to shake out. I would ask that for this next one-year period, beginning at the polls in March, that everybody considers that we wait and see where can the school board, the budget committee, the admin team, of which I have the greatest respect for, where can they find? All of a sudden, they may open up one day and say, look, we can save $11,000 today because of the change from the Middleton departure. Or, boy, in our next budget season, we had better plan on an additional $11,000 because of the Middleton leaving. I don't think rash decisions, I don't think pushing one agenda over another, I don't think putting the burden on, I've heard so much about I want the best education for my kids no matter what. Well, let me give you my version of what. I've heard about people are going to come to this town because of such a marvelous school system. Well, that may happen, and businesses may actually check that out when they happen. And there'll be plenty of places for them to move to if the impact continues to go up. I think we need to work with what the budget committee and the school board has projected. I think we all need to take a deep breath, hold the phone for 12 months, and let's see what it looks like in a year from now. There are so many variables that we have not had to face yet. This is a community. This is not a bunch of 15 or 20 people that come here every year and say, this is what you got, take it or leave it. This is a community. This is your opportunity to make a difference at the ballot booth. I firmly believe that as a community, we're the ones that go out and check on each other's neighbors, plow the driveway, return the loose dog. That's what we do. So let's take that to the level. Let's everybody just work together, see what the final ramifications of the Middleton departure are, and at this time next year, we'll have a lot more experience under our belt. We'll have a much stronger position from which we can fire over the bow at. And I think at that point, as opposed to fractioned units in town, we'll have one unified front so that we can all work together for the following year. Having said that, I encourage you greatly to pass the proposed budget. It's unfair to ask the people that have put all of us in this room today that paid their taxes when we were coming up through. It's unfair to ask the lower income, the fixed income, the lower poverty level people who live in this town, the people who rent, who personally have actually said to me, I rent, so it's not going to matter. If the taxes go through the roof, honey, it's going to matter because your rent's going up. Those are all things that as a community, as a unified community, a year from now, we'll be able to make these decisions. It's scary out there. It really is. Let's hope for a lot of great surprises. I personally was very disappointed with the Middleton vote. I was blown away by the Middleton vote. We wish them all the best of luck in the world. But I don't think we yet know all of how that's going to happen. Thank you.
Mr. Johnson.
Thank you for showing up here at what side you're on.
Microphone.
I want to thank everybody for showing up, especially everybody had something to say, no matter what side you were on. It was greatly appreciated, and I think that comes from everybody sitting up here. Thank you.
The school board feels the same way. Thank you for all the people that come to our meetings and pay attention and are there to help us when we're looking for ideas. And although we may not always agree, we do really appreciate your attendance and your help. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Second. Second by Ann Titus. All in favor? All opposed? Meeting is closed.